Welcome to Tricked Out. I'm Andrew Totolis. On this show, we take the coolest modifications in the sport compact scene and show you what it takes to do it yourself. Today's no different. We're working with a 2005 Scion TC. As the third member of the Scion family, this is Toyota's answer to the Civic. With its low sticker price and 160 horsepower right out of the box, this baby's a steal. But there's always room for improvement, right? Of course. Now, the owner wants to flex his skills at the autocross track, but this thing takes turns like a ship at sea. So to solve the problem, I'm going to stiffen up the chassis by adding a front strut tower bar and tying the rear end suspension together with a stiffer sway bar to take care of the body roll. Now, that seems like enough, right? Yeah, well, I'm going to one better it. I'm going to increase the footprint left behind by the tires by adding a front and rear adjustable camber kit, which allows me to adjust the camber using a special gauge to make this car street ready or track ready, depending on the moment. In doing this project, we're going to be adjusting the alignment, which is a delicate situation. If your alignment's out of whack, you can be in a lot of danger out there on the road. But don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do it right. Plus, I got faith in you. Now, before we get started, let's take a closer look at this ride. This Scion TC belongs to Michael Hill. Michael has added some spice to this expandable platform. There's carbon fiber trim on the B-pillars and strobe graphics laid down over the indigo ink pearl paint. He lowered the ride with upgraded springs and flies on 17-inch wheels and tires. Under the hood, the gel battery adds a yellow splash, and the engine has no problems breathing with a cold air intake that opens up the lungs of this 2.4-liter engine. The interior of this Scion has more carbon fiber trim highlighting the CD and MP3 pumping audio system that thumps through the amp into a 10-inch sub in a custom-fit sub box. This is a fine ride indeed, but no ride is truly complete until it's been tricked out. You know, it makes me happy to know that jams are always a priority. To start today's project, you'll need a front strut tower bar and some standard shop tools. You'll also need a rear sway bar. The camber kit includes front camber bolts and rear adjustable camber arms. Plus, a camber caster gauge will be handy to check the work. You can get a complete list of materials and instructions by visiting our website at DIYnetwork.com. Now, I spent a lot of time looking for ways to get more power out of the engine, but if I can't transfer that power to the road, then I've wasted my time and money. See, I'm turning this TC here into a race car, but on a race car, the suspension is tied directly into a rigid frame. But on a street car, it's a unibody construction designed to flex and move to give you a more comfortable ride. But it also absorbs energy that you could use on the track. Now, one place that energy goes is the front strut towers. You're at the track, you take a hard turn, the towers flex, causing chassis flex and a loss of traction because all the pressure's going to one tire. By adding a strut tower bar, you tie the two towers together to act as one unit, so when you make that turn, the pressure is dispersed amongst two towers instead of one, reducing chassis flex. You get it? Good. Now, the best part is the install is a breeze. It just bolts right on. On the TC, the strut tower bolts are underneath the cowl, so I use a pick tool to pop out the fasteners on both sides and use soft hammer handles to hold the cowl up out of the way when I need to reach the inside nuts. On the driver's side, I have to loosen all three nuts, but I leave one of the nuts on the stud so the strut doesn't fall out when I jack up the car. Then, I wiggle the strut from underneath to provide clearance for the inside nut to pop off. Next, I bring in the strut tower bar and slide it on over the strut bolts. After the bar is seated on both sides, I install the driver's side nuts and drop the car back down before I tighten up all three of the nuts and replace the plastic engine cowl. When the driver's side is tightened up, I move to the other side to finish up the install. The strut bar looks great, and it's going to handle even better. Next, see how an upgraded sway bar can make the difference between hanging a curve and blowing it out. And later, welcome back to Tricked Out, where we take today's technology and show you how to slap it onto your car for a superior ride. If you're just joining me, I am tightening up the suspension and adding adjustable camber components to a 2005 Scion TC. I've already added the front strut tower bar to reduce chassis flex, and now it's time to clamp down the rear suspension with an adjustable tubular sway bar to help fight body roll. If you've ever driven an old pickup truck or your grandparents' old land yacht, you may have noticed that it leans heavily in the corners. Now, this is cool if you're on your way to bingo, but if you're trying to win a race, that ain't gonna cut it. Now, the sway bar is actually an anti-sway bar because it reduces sway or roll. This is how it works. It connects the left and the right side of the suspension together to allow for better handling and flatter cornering. Check it out. In a stock setup, you'll get a small and flexible sway bar, if you get a sway bar at all. Now this hose is gonna represent that sway bar. So you're at the track, you're going along, come to a hard corner, boom, check it out. The body rolls this way, you lose traction on this tire, all of a sudden you're in last place, you're going home a loser, nobody loves you, no trophy. Right now, you upgrade to a thicker sway bar that this hose will represent. Same track, same corner, check it. Much less twist, the tires stay planted to the track, you might actually win this thing, right? Now, in this tuner world we live in, we can choose the thickness of our sway bar and adjust it according to our intended use. If I want to use it as a daily driver, I can set the sway bar soft. If I want to take it to the track, I can set it hard. But in order to get the new one in, the old one's got to come out. Rear sway bars are usually buried under the exhaust system. On the Scion, the exhaust is bolted together at the midpipe, which makes it much easier to just unbolt the muffler and tailpipe and get it out of the way. Once the muffler is out of the way, I unbolt the end links that connect the factory sway bar to the rear suspension. When both ends of the bar are loose, I remove the bolts that secure the frame mounts and pull the bar out of the car. Remember what I said about the stock sway bar? Well, let's check it out in comparison. That is a huge difference, man. This one is uber wimpy. Can't wait to get the new one in. All right, we have a little prep work to do, very little prep work to do before we get the new one on. First, we're gonna take off these protective sleeves here. These are just here to keep the paint from nicking right here where we're gonna put our rubber bushings and tearing up the rubber. Then, we will take the lube that was supplied with the sway bar and put it in our rubber bushing. The lube is a really important step because it will increase the life of the bushings. Easy steezy. Let's flow. The thicker sway bar goes in just like the skinny factory bar came out. First, I bolt in the subframe mounts on the inside and tighten them up with the air ratchet. Then, I attach the end links using the inside hole on the bar. It's the hardest setting for street and track. At this point, I'd usually reinstall the muffler and go for a ride, but I still have the camber arms to do, so it's all gotta wait. The suspension is now tight, and it's gonna make a huge difference at the track, but that's only the beginning. There's more to come. We'll see you back here in a minute. Welcome back to Tricked Out. I'm Andrew Totolis. On today's show, I'm taking the hard corners with a Scion TC. Now, to do this job right, I've already boxed in the chassis with a front strut tower bar, and for the rear suspension, I put in an adjustable rear sway bar. Now that everything's tightened up, I want to make sure that my tires stick to the ground, and I'm going to do that with an adjustable camber kit. Now, camber is kind of a weird concept to grasp your head around. You know what? Let me just show you. It's a lot easier. Come here. Camber is an alignment term that refers to the angle of the tires as they meet the ground, and it's measured in degrees. A positive camber, tires angle out. Negative camber, tires angle in. Zero camber, tires lay flat. On a street car, they usually run at zero camber for two reasons. One, tire wear, and two, most of the time you're driving in a straight line anyway, so zero camber gives you the best traction for straight line performance. That's why drag racers also run at zero camber. But we're upgrading the suspension on the TC, so we obviously want to take those corners a lot harder. So we're going to run at negative camber. Check it out. We're at the track, we come to a hard turn, boom. All the pressure goes to the outside tire, which now lays flat on the track, giving us the biggest contact patch to the ground. Therefore, we can take the corners a lot harder without losing it. And that's the basics of camber. To help me out with this project, I got a few toys. First, this custom camber gauge. Look at this. It's got a level over here that's measured in degrees. Remember, I said camber is all measured in degrees, so this is a really nice feature. You attach it to the wheel like so, and you can pitch in, pitch out, depending on what you're trying to do. Also, I'm going to replace the front strut bolts with these new strut bolts, which will also allow me to adjust the camber. Very nice. Now, before I get started, you know I'm all about baseline, so I want to find out where the car is sitting right now. Getting our baseline measurements is easy with our new gauge. Attaches to the wheel like so. Now, if you're really worried about scratching your rims, you can also just hold it up against the wheel and get the same effect. All right, looks like we got negative 1.5 camber. Now, the reason we're already at negative camber is because my man's put lowered springs in here. You also want to make sure that both front tires are at the same camber. I checked that one, they're both at negative 1.5, but I want more. So I'm going to install my new front strut bolts. Once I jack the car up and pull the front wheel, I loosen the lower spindle bolt with an impact wrench to give some adjustment room. and then completely remove the straight upper spindle bolt and replace it with the offset camber adjustment bolt. With the indicator down, the settings should match the original reading where we started. I tighten up both of the spindle bolts and torque them down to hold the settings before I do it all again on the other side. All right, we're still at baseline, which was negative 1.5 camber. Now, we should be able to tune this for the street or the track, but let's see if we can get the wheels back to 0 camber to compensate for those lowered springs. With the wheel back off, I loosen the new upper spindle bolt. Now I can turn the indicator to add positive camber to offset the negative camber from the upgraded suspension. Then I tighten it back down, replace the wheel, drop the car to the ground, and do it again on the passenger side. All right, I've got the front at 0 camber on both sides. Now I'm gonna hit up the back. First, I measure the baseline camber at the back wheels and then jack the car up to remove the old camber arms. The camber arms connect the bottom of the rear suspension to the subframe of the car. I take the inside bolt out first. The factory design has a little room for adjustment, using a cam bolt that changes camber slightly depending on how it's tightened down. But the adjustment range is too small for serious motorsports, so I pop it out. The outside end of the camber arm is connected to the spindle. It's a little easier to reach, so pulling it out is less of a problem. After the bolts are removed, I pull out the arm. The new adjustable arms go right in with the factory bolts. The outer bolt is easier to reach from the outside, so I pop the arm into the spindle, use my drift to line it up, and snug it up with the air ratchet. Back under the car, I reinstall the cam bolt and washer, trying to get as close as possible to the original setting, then put the nut back on, and repeat the process on the other side. Once the new arms are in place, I go ahead and replace the muffler and tailpipe, tighten the assembly at the mid-pipe, then hop out from under the car, install the wheels, and drop it to the ground to make sure that the baseline setting is still at negative 1.5. To adjust the setting back to 0, I jack the car up one more time and hang the gauge back on the wheel. Now, to give me a baseline, I need to adjust the level so it reads negative 1.5, just like the gauge was when the car was on the ground. So I reach in around the wheel and loosen the pinch bolt, back off the lock nut, and begin to rotate the adjustment sleeve. I check the gauge as the top of the wheel moves out. And once the setting reads 0 degrees on the gauge, I tighten up everything and double check my work. I repeat the adjustment steps on the other side, and to finish up, I drop the car to the ground. So let's see. I put in a stiffer sway bar, a front strut tower bar, and an adjustable camber kit all the way around the car. So I guess there's only one thing left to do, and that's take it to the races. Coming up, Welcome back to Tricked Out, where I show you how a little time and effort can make a big difference in how your car looks and performs. We spent some time on this Scion upgrading the suspension and adding an adjustable camber kit. And now, it's time to put these mods to the test. I brought the Scion TC out, along with its owner, Michael, to a Sports Car Club of America club race. It's his first time, and he's about to learn that SCCA racing is some serious fun. The racers are divided into classes and timed around an improvised track, with the lowest times advancing onto the regional and national competitions. I want to see if changing the camber settings will really make a difference, but before any testing goes down, we have to make sure that the car is safe to run. Before any car gets to race, it has to be tech inspected. The last thing you want is to do a bunch of great work onto your car, get all excited, get to the track, see the cones, get ready to race, and then fail the tech inspection. So, I'm going to show you what the inspectors are looking for so you can prep the car before you get to the track and breeze through that inspection. On the outside, on the wheels, any hubcaps or center caps that might pop off on the track, got to come off. I already did that. Now, under the hood, they're going to make sure that your battery is secured. Now, it can't be secured with bungee cord or twine. It's got to have some hardware keeping it down. They're also going to check for leaks because they're real sticklers about any fluid getting on the track. In the interior, Anything that's loose, like floor mats that might get caught under the gas pedal or tangled in your feet, gotta come out. Also, any amp or sub enclosures. Now this can be dangerous. They can come loose, fly forward, knock you in the head, not cool. Also, getting rid of those, you lose some weight, car goes a little faster. When you're done with all that, you go and register, get your number and your class letters, which need to be displayed on either side of the car. Now, Michael's still a novice, so his class letters stand for Novice Street Touring Sport. When you're done with all that, you pop the hood and the trunk, which signals an inspector to come over, hopefully give you a passing grade, and you're ready to race.
Before you drive the course, you need to walk it, and that's mandatory if you're a novice, but otherwise, it's just good common sense. The first time around the track is a guided tour conducted by an experienced driver that will give you tips along the way.
If you notice, a
smart driver will keep walking the track even after the tour because knowing the track equals faster times behind the wheel.
The TC is good to go. We've set this up like a normal street car at 0 camber and the tires that came with it. The car owner, Mike, is ready to show off his skills, so let's see how he does. No fear, brother.
Michael comes off the line pretty quickly, but nerves get the best of him, and he makes a wrong turn mid-course.
This is a DNF. Somebody needs to talk to him when he comes back by.
DNF means did not finish. Michael missed some cones, so we don't get a time for his first run, and he'll have to run again. On the second run, Michael makes all of his turns in the right places. He holds a decent line through the entire course and finishes with a baseline run of 34.9 seconds. After completing his first timed run, Michael heads to the pits.
All right, man, 34.9, not bad. Now let's change the camber and see what that does.
Michael jumps in and pulls off the front tire. I adjust the camber spindle bolts to -3 on both sides, just like we did in the shop. Next, we do the same thing in the back. The camber gauge works great at the track, especially when you have a set of eyes on the gauge and another set doing the hard work underneath. Once we get the new camber settings dialed in, it's time for Michael's second timed run. Right off the line, it looks like Michael's going to have a good run. Through the chicanes, the negative camber settings allow more of the tires to touch the ground. The whole thing looks smoother, and smoother on a road course is always faster. Michael completes the course with no problems, and it turns out that the camber change was a great mod. He comes away with a 33.5. Nice.
That's what I'm talking about, man. 33.5, you shaved off over more than a second. How did the new camber feel?
Great. I can really tell the difference.
Cool, I'll meet you back at the pits, man.
Okay.
Nice work, nice driving, brother. You know, it's really cool that that kind of change can happen with a little bit of knowledge and some well-designed parts. Let's run down the cost of today's project.
The front strut tower bar cost $140, and the rear sway bar cost $200. The front camber bolts are about $45, and the rear adjustable camber arms add in another $175. Throw in 4-wheel alignment for another $120, and the total cost for today's project is just under $700.
That's not too bad, and we saved about $350 by installing the parts ourselves. And don't forget, you can get a complete list of instructions for all the projects you see here on Tricked Out by visiting our website at DIYnetwork.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.